So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Ancestral Lineage Healing Community. This is the monthly, uh, excuse me, I just realized I had some notes here and then I had something else in front of it. So, hello, human condition. This is the monthly Zoom call for the Ancestral Lineage Healing Community that I started when I started offering some free teachings and also working with clients one-on-one and having online course material that you could access by yourself. I just found that there were questions that people had, and it felt really good to offer something monthly to just kind of expand the information that's being shared in the courses or in the private sessions. And just as a way, it's not that I really think that any of us are experts on this. I mean, how could we be? We're humans in a human body, and we're trying to figure out what's going on in this other realm that maybe we see, maybe we hear, maybe we just have a sense or a knowing. But I'm going to just share some things that have made sense to me. And part of this is based on experiences I've had and also witnessing other people. So if you have watched any of the other recordings, you're probably used to the fact that I start with a prayer of gratitude. And I was just inspired by my ancestors right before we got on that instead of doing something that is usually very serious for me, to sing a little bit and do like a quick calling on them, like a quick way of calling on them. And I want to demonstrate how when you are having a relationship with the unseen world and you build this relationship with trusted guides, sometimes it's as quick as I'm just calling on you while I'm making a cup of coffee this morning. It doesn't mean you have to sit for 30 minutes to actually have the connection happen. I mean, it's the same thing like you see your neighbor. Maybe sometimes you stop and you have a longer chat, and other times you're like, hey, good morning. And then you keep going, but you've still had connection. So this is about connection. Okay, so my prayer today, my prayer of gratitude is I love the mountains, I love the rolling hills, I love the flowers, I love the daffodils, I love the fireside when the lights are low. Boom diada 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 boom. And I'll sing it once more. I'll see if I can get a lower tune here. I love the mountains, I love the rolling hills, I love the flowers, I love the daffodils, I love the fireside when the lights are low. Boom diada 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 boom. Thank you to the ancestors. Thank you for your bringing forth your wisdom, guidance, love, protection, and playfulness, because that felt important today, was to be a little playful. Thank you to our trusted protector guides for clearing the energetic space around us and for setting up boundaries of protection as we go in and out of these different realms. Thank you to the land spirits and all who came here before us, humans, animals, trees, the air, water, fire, earth, ether. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us that as humans, we are one element in this big, wide world web that we now think of as the internet, but actually it is life. It is what life is. So with this simple, playful opening, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. And I just pause here for a moment for each of us to call on a trusted guide. And this could be a deity, a goddess, a land spirit, an animal spirit, whatever you feel connected to as like a big power that is in the unseen world. So you call on that trusted guide, ask them to clear the energetic space around you and to set up boundaries, ritual space. for our time together. And again, simple opening. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So it is. Thanks for playing with me with that, for receiving my woohoo playfulness. That's a song actually that I learned in Girl Scouts years ago, and I sing it as a round. I wish I could have figured out a way to do that. But I also, it's one of my granddaughter's very favorite song. She's 1 year old, and she always lights up when I sing that song. That is the song that breaks through whatever is, wherever there's discourse, wherever there's just high emotion, and it just brings us back to center. And so I'm grateful that my ancestors said to share that with you today. So I want to just share, I had a bunch of things I wanted to talk about today, and I felt like I kept saying different things. So I feel like there are two things I want to really focus on today. Um, Actually, three things. I'm going to start by just briefly explaining, giving you an overview of the online courses that I created, because I haven't really spent a lot of time doing that. I want you to understand my thinking in the way that I designed those and how it's a support. The second thing is I want to just share what I believe about angels, ancestors, and our higher selves. Like, what's the difference? And then I have a few very, very simple things I'm going to share about building a relationship with the blessings of your well and vibrant ancestors. And I feel like in August, when I do this again at the end of August, which is going to be August 28th, I believe, is the last Thursday of the month. I'm going to go into more depth with this one, but today there was just something calling forth these other topics, so I'm going to focus on that. Um, okay, so the first thing I want to say is I'm going to just give you the overview of these three online courses. They are self-paced. They are, I designed them for you to read through different stories so that you could reflect on your own life. So the stories are not like, oh, I'm the expert, here's the absolute. It's about, here are things that I've been curious about or that I've seen. So level one, I started out with level one about building a relationship with the unseen. Because what I saw was that when you start to go into these different realms, which we do every day, I've talked about this on other Zooms about how meditating, writing, connecting with nature, all of those things are actually connecting us with other realms. So if you start the day with a trusted protector guide, very simple, look how simple that was to just call on them, and you set up ritual safety, I've learned that it's a vital part of connecting with our ancestors because you're putting out a call. Ancestors, come join me here. All right, who else is hearing that call? What else is going on in the unseen world on that day? So, in that first course, I really focused on different ways of doing that and why, and even talked a little bit about rituals, about simple rituals we do all the time. Like, have you ever sung happy birthday to someone and had a cake? Yeah, that's a ritual. Um, so to just realize that. All right. So if you had been raised in a family that practiced earth honoring rituals, the elders would have taught you this. And so we are returning to something that was buried knowledge. Okay, so that's the first thing to cultivate. The second course is about grief, forgiveness, and family relationships, as well as divination tools. And I focused on that second because it's really common when you do ancestral work that grief and forgiveness begin to surface. And some of the forgiveness is self-forgiveness. some of the grief is like lost dreams, but also things that were lost because your ancestors had to leave their ancestral homes, or there was war, or there was famine. Like there's grief that we carry in our bodies that isn't even about the day, the current times. It's about what's in our lineage, what's in our DNA. And so I had that second in the second course because it gives a foundation of support for when you dive more into ancestral work. And the third course, um, it's 5 weeks where I share the 5-step process that I learned from Daniel 4 with tips on what to expect at each stage, how to support yourself, or when it might be useful to work with a practitioner. Okay, so now that is on the recording and it is there that I can refer people to when there are questions. Second topic, what I want to go over briefly is angels, ancestors, higher self. What's the difference? So this was something that I really noticed in the last 6 years of doing the ancestral work because I always had a relationship with angels and archangels, and I've had coaching guides. I mean, for a long time, probably 20 years, that I became aware of these guides that would show up whenever I was coaching. And I just used to call them, well, I feel like the guides are telling me. And then finally, one of my clients said, who are the guides? And I was like, I don't really know. It's just that the information that comes through them feels really real and powerful. All right, so here's what I've discovered the difference between. It feels like the angels are partners who are around me. In some ways, they're here to protect me. They're here to kind of communicate with about like ideas I have and almost like networking type of things at times with them. And one of my first conscious connections was with Archangel Michael. And it was in the 80s. I went to my first meditation circle, and someone led us in this, like walk down or go into the garden type meditation and meet a guide and see what the guide has to say. And there was a man who came forward. He was dressed casually. He was carrying a sword. And I was like, okay, he's got the sword. And it was just, okay, felt kind of friendly. Wasn't really sure. And then I came back into the circle and shared what had happened. And someone said to me right away, well, that sounds like Archangel Michael. And I said, who is that? And they told me a little bit about him and that he carries a sword. And I said, okay, some of the other things they shared, I thought, yeah, it feels like that could be. And then I had someone in the circle who said, that can't be Archangel Michael. This is your first circle. He doesn't come to newbies. She told me it was my ego thinking I was special. And I said, well, I've never heard of Archangel Michael at that point. And uh, no, there are no limitations. Michael will come to whoever calls on him. There's no like you have to have some level of mastery. The whole point is we connect with archangels, angels, guides who are here to support us. And there's no hierarchy with that, no limitations. And one of the things that really built for me over time was I wasn't going to share this necessarily, but it's really coming up to just say something about it. I remember when there was this time where I lived on the edge of eviction for 2 years. And I would wake up with night terrors and I would call on him to just hold me, to help me through this time. And I can tell you that within a short amount of time, I could just feel my body relaxing. I felt held. I felt supported. And it became even more real to me, our ability to call on trusted guides in the spirit world. I can feel the power of his protection and that he's a trusted friend. Um, so the biggest difference that I noticed with archangels and with ancestors, is that whenever I call on the strength of my ancestors, and I typically call on older ancestors or ancient ones, even though I have palpable experiences with grandparents who have died. But I'll call on the ancient ones. And whenever I'm connecting with them, I feel like there's an activation in my body where there is a match between our gifts, our blessings, our skills. It is feels like a body connection um, and awakening. And like it helps me to see that I can see the way the skills in my ancestry have manifested in me. And I could look through each grandparent line, and just to name two of them, one of my grandmothers, I began to see through the ancestor work when I got in touch with the blessings, was how she was really an entrepreneur. She just did it with small, like a cottage industry. But she would create things. She'd come up with these ideas and then she would sell them at the local, like pharmacy type thing where they would have that. My grandparents lived on Cape Cod. And so there was, things for tourists or whatever. And she would come up with these ideas. And I began to learn more about her as an entrepreneur. And so I feel like when I connect with her, I'm really getting the wisdom of what she learned. And that helps to awaken it in me. So it feels more body. And I say, well, and let me just say, when I connect with my higher self, it feels like it is the blueprint of who I am. The um, So above our heads, there is the eighth chakra, which is the soul chakra. And that connection to our soul is there's all kinds of things in that chakra. There's the ancestral skills that we have. That's where you can tap into human design, Akashic records. It is what our blueprints are, the astrology, all the different things that make up who we are in this lifetime. And so whenever I call on my higher self, I feel like I'm calling on that higher vision of myself, that higher part of myself that is connected to all of this. And that can help me be a human walking around in this world, but to know that I have the support of a higher perspective of what's going on or a higher vision about my skills. And then the last thing I want to say about this is that when I do the ancestral work, I'm usually calling on vibrantly well ancestors who are farther down the line, ancient or older ancestors. And one of the reasons that I start there, well, there's two reasons. One is that the ancestors have this um, connection to the earth honoring rituals that we were disconnected with. So they have some kind of knowledge or imprint about how to connect in these different realms. And it just feels like they're well. So when there was a break in the lineage and burdens started coming in, those burdens, the more recent, have carried those for a long time in their bodies. They've been around for a long time. The other thing is that when I think of my grandparents, as much as I think of my grandfather Phil, I had a very special relationship with him. I felt like I was special. I felt his love deeply for me. And he was so imaginative and artistic, and he was a writer, and he was also a fisherman, and that's how he kept the family alive before he started writing. And he was just so, yeah, I just have such great love and admiration for him. But I also remember that he was an alcoholic. He was, I'll say, a racist. And even though it was a little more covert, the racism was there. And there was this real kind of patriarchal thing. Even in his artistic free self, there was this patriarchal thing. So I connect with him, but I reach back further. Yeah. And over time, I mean, I feel like he's well in spirit now. And I've been working with him for years and the ancestors for years. So anyway, maybe that's an old story about him. But that was why I started with the ancient or older ancestors, was because of the remembrance that was there. So again, my purpose in talking about this is for you to kind of let it stir within you and to see, well, what do I believe? Or what are my experiences? Or maybe I want to talk with one of my guides and or maybe I want to see if there are other guides who want to connect with me. I have found also that the ancestors, in working with each of the lines, there are distinct, it's one of the reasons I like to work with each grandparent line separately, is because you can begin to feel the difference energetically in the lines. I had one client once who always got a color associated with the line. My ancestors get, so other people are, had some other kind of creative thing like a music or a song that comes up. For me, most of my ancestors gave me a word to call them and to call them as a collective, even though I could see individually who they were. So I'm going to wrap up by just saying here are a couple of ways, very simple things that you can do to connect. Number one, call on vibrantly well ancestors. And then here's a little practice where after calling on a protector guide to clear the energetic space around you, ask your vibrantly well ancestors to meet you somewhere in nature, and then ask your trusted guides who have created ritual safety for you to just surround your ancestors with a boundary of love. And this could be if your connection is with a parent or a grandparent, then you could just ask that they are surrounded in this boundary of love. And that creates some kind of protection for everyone, but you are also you're able to connect, but you're clearing the field so that the purest energy can connect between you. And I know I've used this example many times, but those who are here today may not have heard it. When I was a child, my brother was 2 years old. He got croup and he was in the hospital, and they put an oxygen tent around his bed. And so we could still talk to him. He could talk to us. We could see him. There was no barrier between us other than he had, he was surrounded in oxygen, extra oxygen, you know? And so that's how I think of a boundary of love, that it doesn't hurt to have that love bubble around them. And they're still, you're still able to have connection and all of that. But when you're having that connection with the ancestors, you could very simply ask them about the blessings and burdens on the line. Is there anything that they have to share with you? And it may be that you think you know all the things about them, and I would say be curious, be open, and maybe you'll get a different perspective the way I did about my grandmother, who I didn't realize, I didn't think of her as an entrepreneur. But once I received that as one of the blessings, and I started to understand it more, I actually began to see it in many areas of her life and the way that she had that mind for business and for creativity, and all the ways that she lived with such freedom in that way. And then from the blessings and burdens that they share with you, if you're inspired, write a story about it and just use your imagination and ask the ancestors to write it with you and see what comes up. Or you could create some kind of art. And then the other thing that you could do while you were with them is to ask them if there's some kind of offering that you could make in the world that would connect you more deeply with them. And an offering, and I'm talking simple things. If they say, make a huge feast for me every night, no, you do not have to do that kind of thing. But it could be that it is to sing a song or to light a candle or light some incense. And and there are other traditional ways where it's like taking some cornmeal and putting it outside around a tree or putting some kind of offering. It could be having a glass of water that you put on your desk and just ask that water absorb any kind of negativity or interference or anything that's going on in your life. And then you take that water and as a blessing, you put it back into the earth and allow that transformation, that transmutation to come. Yeah. So I feel like I'm going to stop the recording in just a moment. I'm just pausing to tune in. Well, I'm going to say thank you to those of you who've been here live, and thank you to everyone who's listening to the recording. I'm glad you're here. If there are other questions that you have or things that you'd like to share with me, there is a community space on the Ancestral Lineage Healing that you can join. And I'm going to leave it at that today. So thank you to our ancestors. Thank you to our trusted guides. Thank you to the land spirits. And thank you to all the guides who have taught us so much about this connection to the world, to these other worlds. And with that, I say thank you. And so it is.